Hey, how's it going? My name is Wes. Welcome back to another lesson. In today's lesson, we will go over another purple grammar lesson. And the topic of today's lesson is the prepositions in Spanish. And as you can see, this topic of prepositions in Spanish is divided up into two different parts. So today we will start with part number 1 of the prepositions in Spanish. Now, before we start off with the different prepositions that we have in Spanish, I first want to explain to you what prepositions are, because most likely you don't really know what prepositions are. So let me try to explain it before we move forward. Alright, so prepositions are words that we use to show relationships between things in a sentence. Prepositions often tell us about where something is or when something happens. So for example, in English, we have the following prepositions. So if you say, I work until 5 o'clock, then that word until is a preposition because it gives us information about when something happens. So I work until 5 o'clock. Another preposition would be during. So during the weekend. So again, it shows when something is happening. So during the weekend, during. And then a preposition can also tell us where something is. So for example, in the sentence, the cat is under the table. So where is the cat? Under the table. So the word under, again, is a preposition. So those are some common prepositions that we have in English. And of course, in Spanish, we also have different prepositions. Now, in these two lessons, so today lesson number 1, and in a couple lessons, the second part of the prepositions in Spanish, I want to go over about more or less 20 different prepositions that are very commonly used in the Spanish language. So in today's lesson, we will go over the first 9 or 10 prepositions in Spanish. So without further ado, let's jump right into the first one. Right, so the first preposition that we have in Spanish is en, which translates to in English.
En. En.
And this is a very common preposition that you will see and hear a lot in Spanish. So for example, I am in the office.
Estoy en la oficina. Estoy en la oficina.
So en is in. It's the first one to add to our list of prepositions. Now the second one, which is also very, very common in Spanish, is con, which means with.
Con. Con.
So for example, if you want to say, I go out with my friends, you say salgo, which means I go out or I leave, con mis amigos. I go out with my friends.
Salgo con mis amigos. Salgo con mis amigos.
So con, in this case, is a preposition which means with. So we have en, in, and con, with. So now that we know how to say with, we might also want to know how to say without. So without in Spanish is sin.
Sin. Sin.
For example, I cannot live without you.
No puedo vivir sin ti. No puedo vivir sin ti.
So sin is without. Con, with, and sin, without. Right, let's move on to the next one, which is for.
Por. Por. Gracias por tu ayuda. Gracias por tu ayuda.
Now, for the word for, we actually have another word, which is para.
Para. Para.
So, for example,
Este regalo es para ti. Este regalo es para ti.
so we have two ways for saying for. So naturally, you might ask yourself, Wes, which one do I use? Now, for now, I don't really want to go deep into the differences and when to use which one, because I will create a separate lesson about that specific topic, because it's a whole topic in itself. But just to give you a brief explanation of when to use which one. So in general, the word por, so P-O-R, is used when we give a reason or a cause or an explanation of something. So for example, in this sentence, lo hago por ti. Lo hago por ti, which means I do it or I make it for you. So here again, we give a reason or a cause of us doing something. So I do it or I make it, lo hago por ti. So for you. So there's a reason or a cause, or you kind of explain why you do something. And then we also have para, which we use when we talk more about like a goal or a destination or a receiver, for example. So, for example, in a sentence, esto es para ti, which in English is this is for you. So, esto, this, es para ti, is for you. So here we talk about a destination or more of like a receiver, so someone that's receiving something. So this is for you, someone is receiving that. So then we use para and we use por when we give a reason, a cause, or an explanation. But again, as I said before, don't worry about this for now. I will have a separate lesson that dives deep into this topic. All right, let's move on to the next word, which is de, which in English means from.
De. De. La casa de mi abuela es grande. La casa de mi abuela es grande.
So that means from, and again, it's a very, very frequently used preposition that you will hear and use a lot in Spanish. So I definitely recommend you to learn this preposition as well. All right, the next word is hacia, which means about, toward, or to.
Hacia. Hacia.
So for example, we walk towards the park.
Caminamos hacia el parque. Caminamos hacia el parque.
So in this example, hacia means towards, but it can also mean about or to. All right, the next preposition is desde, which means since.
Desde. Desde.
So for example, I've lived here since 2022.
He vivido aquí desde 2022. He vivido aquí desde 2022. Desde.
All right, then the two last prepositions that we will learn in today's lesson. The first one is
Sobre. Sobre.
So as an example,
Hablamos sobre el clima. Hablamos sobre el clima.
we talk about the weather.
Sobre.
And then the last preposition that we will learn in today's lesson is contra, which means against.
Contra. Contra.
So for example, the team plays against their rivals.
El equipo juega contra sus rivales. El equipo juega contra sus rivales.
The team plays against their rivals. So contra is against.
Contra.
So let's go over all of the different prepositions that we've learned in today's lesson, just to have a little refresher. So we had en, which means in.
En.
Con, with.
Con.
Sin, without.
Sin. Por.
And
Para.
which also means for. We had de, which means from.
De.
Hacia, which means about, toward, or to.
Hacia.
Desde, since.
Desde.
About.
Sobre.
And contra, which was against.
Contra.
Alright, so that's it for the first part of the prepositions in Spanish. In the second part, we will look at the other 9 or 10 commonly used prepositions in Spanish. Now, as always, if you want to get an overview of all of these different prepositions that we went over, you can do so by downloading the reference sheet of today's lesson. Link is in the description or attached to this video. Alright, that's it for this lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Adios.